It's cause I'm a different breed, they call me alien.
Damn. Addiction stick, don't run away.
Hello everybody and welcome back for another episode. Today we're going to be talking The Nephilim Look Like Clowns Part 2, and this will be the final episode in this series. And again, what I'm going to touch on today is I'm going to go into a little more depth onto some of the things I touched on in Part 1, as well as maybe introduce a few new wrinkles to the topic, and I'll leave a link to the
dude. Isn't that the dude that played? He looks like the dude that played the original Joker. Is that him? Is this from that old Batman? I think so. Trying to see. Oh my God! They just come on now. I'm pretty sure this from there. But.
No series that I
See?
drew the inspiration from.
Joker and the Goons. There it is. Joker and the Goons.
Just to summarize real quick, in Part 1, we talked
about
these tales of these red-headed giants, pale-faced red-headed giants who had a cannibalistic nature, so sort of an evil intent. And then we also looked at these clowns, these jesters, and how now they're associated. They seem to have an evil intent associated with them, and they have the pale skin, a lot of times red hair. They have this interesting clothing we see a lot of times, these checkerboards, black and white, these stripes. And again, just in the Batman movie 1989, we had the Joker and his goons who were mimes for some reason. But again, we got the pale face and the interesting clothing with these striped patterns. So they keep putting this stuff in front of us. And I talked about the Pueblo clowns in Part 1 and how they kind of dressed up and they look like jokers or jesters that people see when they take DMT. Well, a lot of you alerted me to this. There was a tribe, a native tribe in Tierra del Fuego, which is, I guess it's in southern Chile or Argentina, I guess. But it's at the southern tip of South America. And this particular tribe, called the Selknam tribe, they had this ceremony, this initiation ceremony, and they had these very elaborate, I don't know if costumes is the right word, but they would dress very elaborately with these intricate designs, and one of them looks very much like what the Pueblo clowns would dress up as, and it's the one on the right here. And again, Tierra del Fuego is way at the bottom of South America, but so we're talking thousands of miles away, a different continent, and thousands of miles away from the American Southwest, where you had the Pueblo clowns. But they're sort of pretty much they're looking identical, and I think people report seeing entities that look like this in the spirit realm when they take DMT. But again, these tribes are separated by continents, thousands of miles, but they seem to be portraying, I believe, an entity that resides in the spirit world. So I wanted to mention that. And again, Joe Rogan, he talked about his DMT experience. But yeah, people encounter clowns, jesters, jokers, and sometimes even scenes that resemble a circus, as well as these checkerboard patterns, these black and white stripes. And I didn't mention this in the first video, but the Freemasons, there's a couple of offshoots of Freemasonry, and one of them is called the Royal Order of Jesters. And all of the people who belong to this Royal Order of Jesters, they are indeed Freemasons, but specifically they're Shriners. And all Shriners are Masons. So it's interesting, you know, you have this secret society and they really seem focused on.
Remember, all Shriners are Masons, but not all Masons are Shriners.
Jokers and jesters and clowns. Again, the Shriners themselves, all Shriners are Masons. All jesters are Shriners. So
What I say? Mans is already sticking to me. He rubbing off on me really well. Let's get it.
at the end of the day, they're all Masons, but these Shriners, again, they like to dress up like clowns, and they're associated with hospitals and children. So you got two branches of this secret society, and they're seem pretty fixated on what I believe are actually entities.
Have y'all heard of, like, all right, sorry for interrupting. I know I keep interrupting. I know Freemasonry goes like so deep, and there's a lot of different theories on it. I don't think the Masons are controlling the world, though. I think they are definitely deep within the occult world, but I don't think the Masons are controlling the world. Nah. They have a lot of ties to everything, but I don't know if the Masons are the ones that are controlling the world
In the non-physical realm. But as far as these patterns goes, I want to elaborate a little bit on this, because people see these stripe patterns, these zigzag patterns, these black and white patterns when they take DMT, for instance, and I think this gets put in front of us in the media, and some directors and producers, sometimes I believe they put it in their TV shows and movies, such as David Lynch. I believe he does this, and you can see, for instance, in Twin Peaks, the TV series directed by Dave Lynch, there was this red room, this extra dimensional space that they would show from time to time, and people walked backwards and did all kinds of talk backwards in this particular extra dimensional space. But the floor was this particular pattern, and David Lynch has a history of showing this floor. And one of his earlier movies, Eraserhead from 1977, again, this similar zigzag type of pattern on the floor. And he actually had a short film, if you want to call it that, on his YouTube channel. It's like 1.5 minutes, but it shows, this is what you're seeing on screen. This is pretty much the setting for the entire 1.5 minutes. But again, it's the same pattern, and we see it in movie videos. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, this song "Don't Come Around Here No More." I believe this is supposed to be the Mad Hatter, Alice in Wonderland, and you can see again these same checkerboard patterns, these zigzag patterns. For some reason, they keep this other dimension, they keep associating these patterns with that dimension and some of these entities. So it's interesting. And now, in part, this is going to take me into talking about this phenomena called liquid crystal polarization, because in part 1, I showed a little short video of a gentleman drawing, I believe he was drawing an alien or a demon, and as he was drawing what he saw, it appeared like something was materializing behind him, and it was very much in line with this black and white checker or striped patterns. And I didn't realize this is there's a lot of examples of this phenomena, and I guess it's termed liquid crystal polarization. And I'll leave a link to one of the videos showing it with regard to Bob Marley, but I'm going to show you a few examples. And I just took some snapshots, and this is from an interview Bob Marley was giving, where initially everything's fine, but as he starts talking during the interview, these weird zigzag patterns start forming specifically around him. And I just was unaware of this phenomenon. But I think in light of what we're talking about, pretty interesting. And somebody mentioned Robert Pattinson, the Twilight movies. I guess he was doing some promotional work. And during the interview, he's talking, and then you get this just weird phenomena. And again, it's localized to him. And I mean, just, again, I can't speak to the validity of all this, but in light of what we're talking about, it's an interesting phenomena. And this individual, just somebody giving an interview on their local news outlet. And this phenomena, again, it just appears randomly, but associated. It's like not affecting any of the structure behind him, but it seems very localized. And I believe this was just another interview, some people doing an interview. I don't know if this was CNN or not, but as they're talking, you just get this crazy effect that happens. And even if you look at her shoulder here, it's just really bizarre. So could this be linked to some influence from this other realm? Who knows? But it seems to kind of go in line with what we're talking about here. So I just wanted to mention it. Again, I'll leave a link to the Bob Marley video and you can check it out. But I just wanted to go a little more in depth on that. And this whole notion of dressing up in drag and painting your face white, and the clothing, like the striped patterns, the zigzag patterns. So things to think about. Is this whole idea of dressing like this and painting your face white, has that been implanted into?
All these motherfuckers looking directly at the camera. Buddy got the best position right here, bro. Look at him. He in that motherfucker like, I had to do it to him.
These narratives and these cultures, who knows? Now, the next thing I'd like to talk about is the curious case of test card F. Now, what is a test card?
Hold on. I'm a little chilly. Let me grab my blankie. My bad. I cut y'all off. Come on. Let's go.
A test card, also known as a test pattern or startup close-down test, it's a TV test signal, and it was typically broadcast at times when there was when no program was being broadcast. So it might be hard to believe, but there was a time when, prior to like cable TV, where TV stations would have no programming. They would stop broadcasting, and a lot of times that would be close to midnight. And what you would see, since there was no, you had dead air, you would see this test pattern, or sometimes you would see just white noise and static. But other times I remember
okay, boomer,
seeing this pattern here in the bottom right a lot of times, and you would hear a tone as well. So if you turned on your TV at like 2 a.m, you might see something like this, prior to the 24-hour, TV cycle. But so that's what we would get in North America. You typically would see something like this, and there might be some other variations, but that's sort of what I remember. But apparently in Europe, and specifically in the UK, there was a different test card or test pattern, and it was referred to as test card F. And it really falls in line with what we're talking about. And you can just imagine my interest when I heard and started coming across articles like this, talking about the test card, when a girl and a clown ruled the airwaves. It's one of BBC's most iconic images, but who created it and why? So it was, I believe she was around 9, Carol Hersey, I believe her name is. And so they would show this card, and I'm going to show it here.
She probably got a bag. Her family was eating off of that test card.
So what people would see, instead of, the white noise or that or this pattern in the bottom right. Instead of that, I guess, and I was unaware of this until recently doing this research, people in the UK and some other countries in Europe, they would see this on their screens. And now apparently there's a reason for this, for everything on this particular test card. There, on one level, there's a reason given for all of it. You know, but where things sort of, for me, just go off the rails is this, for some reason, they got a girl in her clown playing tic-tac-toe, and I guess people sometimes call this noughts and crosses.
That's crazy how, yeah, that is really crazy.
But I couldn't believe it. And not only did people see this, but this particular test card, this was on the air for well over 30 years. That particular test card, it wasn't just showing like between midnight and early morning, but it would, in the UK, they would show it through at routine points throughout the day to fill in their programming gaps. So you might see it in the daytime as well, and at various points throughout the day. So just really interesting. But I mean, here's just this little girl, she was interviewed later in life, and she's been interviewed and talked about the story on how she got to be, you know, pictured, photographed, and put on that test card. But like, this test card was on the air for 4 decades. I believe it was like 30 something. It wasn't 33, but over 30 years, people would see this test card. And I think they estimated, if you calculated all the time that particular test card was on screen for, it would like add up to like 8 years if you condensed it.
Dang.
Continuously. So
There's a lot of test cards.
I'm thinking they're quite literally programming us. So people, I guess, when they would see this test card, there would be music playing behind it. So just everything about this is just, man, I have no doubt that there was more to this test card, and it was on the air. They were showing it for so long because they seem intent on creating a connection between clowns and children. That just seems to be what they're trying to do for whatever reason. And that exo symbolism, we see it with X-Men, and also like Russell Brand, who's just part of the system. He's got the number 33 on his left wrist, but he had a TV show called Brand X, and you see this symbol.
Russell Brand is on everywhere. Like, he's on YouTube, he's on podcasts, he's on TV, movies. He's everywhere, bro. This man's like one of the biggest like industry shills in the world.
Again, all just occultic stuff, but yeah, I couldn't believe it when I found out about this test card F on the air for like over 30 years, 4 decades. And it's, again, this clown symbolism, just putting it in our face constantly. So just really found it interesting, and I just wanted to bring that up, mention it. So that's about all I have to say on that. Now, transitioning a little bit, another curious case. I want to talk about the curious case of B.O.B., Bob.
The rapper?
This all started for me.
Merch. Oh, I'm glad he pulled this up. Remember, I told you guys the other day, the fucking Illuminati card game, when I was reading that 4chan story. Bro, that game came out in like the 60s, and it predicted a lot of different things.
When I first became aware of the Illuminati card game,
Or 80s.
that was from the 90s, but
90s, but
when
okay.
you start looking at some of these cards, one character comes up more so than probably any other, and that's this Bob character. Now, this Bob character, apparently in this game, there's this Church of the Subgenius. It's a parody religion, but it teaches a complex philosophy, and it focuses on this person, J.R. Dobbs, but he goes by Bob. And he's revered as a prophet by the church. So this character, Bob, just happens to be on a lot of these cards. And, I didn't think anything of it, but I just filed it away. And then I remember when the whole flat earth discussion came about, whenever that was, 2015, 16. I remember, people started coming out talking about it, and specifically this rapper by the name of B.O.B., Bob, and what really got my attention with that is the first official response to any claims of flat earth. The first official response was by, from what I can remember, is Neil deGrasse Tyson on Comedy Central, where he took the mic and did like some sort of rap, and then he dropped the mic. And I just remember how...
Don't get me started on Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's really smart. Yes, he is. He's one of the most brilliant minds out there. But he is a definite shill for the fucking elites. Like, they made sure to pick a scientist who was black and very smart. Morgan Freeman wasn't cutting it because Morgan Freeman is an actor. But they made sure they needed somebody. Okay, they needed somebody, so they picked Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm not gonna continue my rant on him. I fuck with you, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Don't think that I don't. I'm just saying. I know you a shill. I know. I see you. Okay. I keep cutting these recordings off. Hold on. But I see you, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Staged and choreographed, I thought all that was, regardless of whatever reality there is to the whole shape of the earth discussion. I'm not even talking about that. Just that whole thing seemed staged to me. This B.O.B. character seems like he's put in place. Of course, Neil deGrasse Tyson's part of the system. And that whole thing with Comedy Central, the way it played out, to me, that's completely staged. And so this person by the name of B.O.B. was one of the biggest public names coming forth with sort of the flat earth discussion. So it just caught my attention, this person with B.O.B. And I remember the Illuminati card game. But again, I just filed it away. So then doing this research into looking at these jokers, jesters, clowns, and when I was looking into some of these Batman movies, the Joker's closest and trusted friend was Bob the Goon. He was the first lieutenant among the Joker goons. So just pretty random, but okay. So this Bob was linked with the Joker. Okay. And again, people see this Joker. People take DMT, see representations of what appear to be jokers, clowns. So again, just filed that away. But then circling all the way back to David Lynch in Twin Peaks, there was this character called Bob and B.O.B. And Bob is an interdimensional entity who feeds on pain and sorrow. And he, you can find him in this interdimensional space with the zigzag patterns to bring it all back. And of course, B.O.B., the killer Bob, was a possessing spirit believed to originate from the mythical Black Lodge. He spent time on Earth possessing human beings, and that whole liquid crystal polarization, we see that attaching to people. And I mean, it's just like, whoa, it's just crazy stuff. But again, none of this is proof, but this Bob, this B-O-B, it comes up in strange places, and there seems to be linked with the Joker and interdimensional entities in this pattern. David Lynch, who seems to be in the know. Really weird, interesting stuff. But if you have any more Bob references, please let me know. Speaking of Bobs, different Bobs, we have Bob Dylan. I just wanted to mention him real quick because I guess in the 1970s, there was this Rolling Thunder Revue, which was just a concert tour by Bob Dylan, the famous American singer-songwriter. And I guess Netflix did a documentary on it. But during this Rolling Thunder Revue, he would just, dress up. He would wear masks and put white paint on. Now again, the official narrative would say it's just him being theatrical, which might be the case, but I just can't help remembering his old little 60 Minutes interview, and I'm sure most of you have heard this, but just in case you haven't, if you just do a YouTube search on Bob Dylan sells his soul, but he talks about making a deal to get him where he's at, and the reason why he continues to produce for like however long it's been, over 40 years, is because he's keeping up his end of the bargain, and he talks about the commander-in-chief of the world you can't see. And so when I just in light of everything, again, we're talking about, could there be more to this? Who knows? Maybe.
All right, y'all. We don't finish this one. I'm gonna go ahead and get to editing. Probably take my butt to sleep. These late night bids take a lot out of me. Yeah. But we're gonna continue this series. We still got 7 more videos to go after this one. We got 10 in total. We got 8 more. We got 10 in total. And we only did the first 2 videos. And we're gonna look more into these clown giants. But anyway, I'm dead. We're all dead. Remember, 34, 3 plus 4 equals 7. It's the year of the 7. We doing all sorts of magical wumbo jumbo. Till next time, adios.
You're dead in my eyes once you try to play. No, there ain't no saving. You'll die in your place. Try to walk all over me. I am not a doormat. Trying to talk down on me. I'ma just ignore that. Hopping in the whip quick. I'm turning ignition. Swerving right past him. I'ma have to ditch. Send him to the ICU. This blade gon'